And we're glad to be here in South Georgia rather than in the ice and snow in North Georgia. Welcome. I'm Bruce Green. I'm Director of Tourism Product Development with the state of Georgia with the Department of Economic Development. And you're thinking, well, how did he end up in Quitman and how did all this happen? And I'm going to take a moment and share with you the wonderful story that basically has been unfolding over the last couple of years. Back in 2010, we came down, actually before that, in 2009, I came down to speak to Leadership Brooks, and they were saying, you know, we really need to do some things here. We've got great old houses, we've got downtown, we've got this stuff, but we really need to get some things going. So we said, well, we've got this experimental program with the Department of Economic Development we're thinking about doing where we take a group of people and come into a community and look at all their assets and then develop a strategy of how that community could work with its cultural, natural, agricultural assets and put that together to attract visitors. Because remember, we work with the tourism division, and I'll introduce our staff shortly. But in this book, and I should have flipped to it earlier, some ideas of where we think collectively, and I won't say this, we as Georgians need to go. Not just Quitmanites and Brooke Countyans, but people all over the state, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, anywhere in the country that people are familiar with camellias, you say Betty's name and they know one of her flowers. And I think that's so remarkable. But anyway, so that's how we got involved in this. Our job is to do two things in economic development: to create and sustain jobs and to cause money to be invested in the communities of Georgia.
Imagine having this in your garden and not telling people. Well, they took it to a show finally after being convinced, and it won, and it won, and it won at every show as the best mutant. And you know what? It's still winning. It sported into the red. Look at that flower. That's a spore of that original Betty Sheffield. It's beautiful blue. This right on 84 Screven Street. You can see there's a car wash there now. There's a railroad track right close by. And that
a couple of footnotes, and we'll get right into Mary Palmer's program, but the materials that are on the registration table, basically all about Betty. Camille will be pulled articles about Betty that go all the way back to the 1950s until most recently the one that relates her to camellias as the Kennedys are to politics. It's a fabulous article. So we made enough of those. They're not in your bag, but they're back there to feel free. So anyway, just those are for your benefit. And again, I'm not going to waste any of Mary's time, but her wonderful bio is in your packet. And I'll tell you a quick story. We were in Atlanta last year at the Southeastern Flower Show, and I walked up, and I had been reading about Mary Palmer for a number of years, and I said, one day I'll meet her. There she was. So I walk up and I'll say, oh wow, we're going to be doing this thing next year in Quitman about camellias. Would you be interested in coming?
Where's How soon do you need me?
And we start talking, and I said, well, I used to live in Tipton. Oh, well, do you know Julie Hunt and Mary Glenn Hendricks? So it's funny, from a conversation, we have this fabulous keynote speaker here today, and I'm just going to sit down and be quiet and let Mary Palmer start because she is incredible, and we are so delighted to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Gosh, with an introduction like that, I don't need much more to perform with for you. You're already primed, the pump is primed, you're ready to learn how to design with camellias, right? That's why I'm here. I'm here to turbocharge your garden with timeless camellias and timeless landscape design. And many of you all already have camellia gardens. And I tell you what, I've been working with Dargan, my lifelong partner in crime. He's my husband and landscape architectural partner. And did you know that he proposed to me 30 years ago, next month, in Middleton Place, next to the oldest camellia in America that's still extant. And I'm going to show you a picture of that. But that, to me, to be able to share that with you all, I thought you'd get kind of goosebumps. That's pretty warm and fuzzy. So it took on a personal meaning to me to be able to be with you all to share this program and you know, the delight of meeting my husband amongst the camellia blossoms. So here we are. We're going to turbocharge your garden. And we're going to talk about its magical layers because we each collect camellias for different reasons. You may collect them for the flower, and you probably collect them for the flower. Because as we know, and you can chime in because we're going to audience together, camellias really can often not be very pretty plants. We've seen things that don't look great. So I'm going to show you how to disguise them until they burst forth with their beautiful blooms. That's part of the lecture. This is my magic sauce that I put on my clients' gardens. So magical layers relate to the beauty and then also the emotional significance of camellias. I bet several of you all have plants that your grandmothers may have given you, your mother, your father, that you may have been given by a friend as a gift to memorialize your anniversary, your birthday, the birth of a child. Camellias as pets take on a whole nother layer, and that's why I call it magical layers. The very first camellia that I fell in love with happens to be the Reine de Fleur. This is the one that's at Middleton Place, and it is, to me, one of the most beautiful camellias. I know this is a tribute to Betty Sheffield, and at the end of the lecture, if I could get the technology working with the music, I'm going to have something set to music for you, so we'll work on that. But the Reine de Fleur was one of the 4 camellias. The history goes in 1786, that's the 3rd quarter of the 18th century, was given, or the 4th quarter actually, was given to the Middleton family. And they planted one in each of the 4 corners of the main parterre near the house where Andre Michaud suggested that they could be well cared for. So those 4 plants, one of which is still alive, theoretically came from that very stock. And this is the flower from that plant. At Middleton Place, this garden is right here. And so it's back in the northeast corner. If that helps you find it, and they'll be glad to show you where it is too. So tourism and camellias has been a big plus for Middleton Place for all these, 200 years. They have 3,500 camellias there to enjoy. So it is outside Charleston, South Carolina. It's just north on the Ashley River. So it'd be a good field trip if y'all are trying to raise money to, build more gardens here. For instance, we heard about Rena Campbell's potential. You could take maybe a group of people to go see other fabulous camellia gardens in the country to learn from them and how they raise money, like your Brooklyn Garden. So I'm all about helping you help the community. When Hugh and I met, and at our wedding, which was in Charleston, we were out of season for camellias. We're at the end of March, so they're just kind of coming along, but we love to float camellias in water. How many of y'all do that in your own homes? I love it. I love it when men raise their hands, because Hugh Dargan taught me that. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. We have to grow camellias under cover there. And so one of my first jobs as a 16-year-old was to help display camellia blossoms at a flower show at Cheapwood. So I love these plants. Now, by the way, I'm an approved horticulture judge for the Garden Club of America, and I actually judge camellias and have won ribbons, won blues. I'm not an expert on camellias, but I know enough to be dangerous, as they say. I tried to find the picture of the earliest camellia blossom to share with you to further enrich the history of why it's been a magical layer in our lives for so long in America and in culture. And this is one from an English print, which is the early 18th century, which certainly camellias came into America and England and to the continent, for instance, way before they really got to us. And this is a sinensis form, I think, or else it's one that was a japonica and haven't become a long way. This is pretty amazing. And the earliest picture, by the way, is from the Song Dynasty from between 900 and 1100 AD. And so remember that if you go to museums, there's a book about the history of the camellia that I couldn't get my hands on. And now, speaking of books of history of the camellia, this is a first edition Harold Hume. If you've never seen one, this is a chance. This is my book. And it was given to me by Juliet Stotts, whose gardens you'll see. And she signed it back when she got it in 1947. And this is the 1946 original first edition. So I just wanted to share with you all that, you know, it means a lot to me to be here to you know, show the depth and interest of camellias in my life, but then this book is something that, it's not for sale. You can look at it, and you'll very seldom ever see the original dust jacket. So that was given to me, the whole library came to me. So let's move on. We're going to talk about spacing camellias, the edging of pathways, and creating focal point backdrops. So there will be a test when this is over, and we can give you all a chance to review your notes. Of course, we grow camellias primarily for their flowers, and we want to be able to space them out so we can thus enjoy the flowers at their best presentation. And when you're using them, as I'm a landscape architect, I'm a licensed landscape architect in 5 states. I love designing with camellias, and there are 2 types that I use. There's the Sasanqua, which has smaller leaves, more smaller blossoms, and it blooms from September till, let's say, December. And we use those that have more wiry arms, and we sort of smush them against buildings as espaliers, and also as ground covers and as hedges. So these are what I call the utilitarian types of camellias. How many of y'all have Sasanquas in your gardens? Great, so I'm preaching to the choir. Now, you, I hope you appreciate my artwork I did specifically for you all. Now, notice that a Sasanqua ground cover camellia is 8 inches to 24 inches tall, about the size of your cat. Think of that when you're designing with them. And they come in, you know, the chansonette's one that we often see in our garden designs. It's a good, it gets to be about 2 feet tall. I like chansonette a lot and like to mix the colors. Now when you're